You have to be able to exercise that commitment, that self-discipline, because you cannot expect it from other people unless you expect it from yourself. We versus me. I always say this, leadership is we versus me, and this is what I mean by that. Welcome to the High Vibe Life podcast, where we are obsessed with all things manifestation, neuroscience, personal growth, and quite simply, living a life beyond our wildest dreams. I'm Moira, author, speaker, podcaster, manifestation, and mindset master. Since getting sober 25 years ago, I've helped tens of thousands of women break through and achieve massive levels of wealth, joy, and freedom. Now it's your turn. Let's dig in. Welcome back to the High Vibe Life podcast with me, Moira Casaba. Today, I'm going to dig into one of really my favorite topics. It's not about manifestation or spirituality or all of that, but it's something that I have somehow become really good at in my entrepreneurial journey, and that is teaching people how to grow leaders. I believe that leaders are built, that they are not born. Certainly we can have some natural leadership qualities within us, but really honing that is a skill and a craft and something that is very teachable. And I wasn't planning on sharing this. I actually have shared a lot of this over the years in blog posts back in the day. It's something that I end up teaching from stage a lot. And I've probably shared it sometime on this podcast in the last few years, but it's worth going back to. So I was asked to speak to a big group of high-level leaders this past week. And I went back to these core concepts because they just don't change, you guys, for me. And I do believe that if you can nail these things, you will become an incredible leader. And the thing that I also love about these topics or these bullet points is that they're not traditional. They're not everything that you hear and pick up in every leadership book out there. So let's start with this. Some of my favorite quotes. Number one, not necessarily a quote, but a leader's job, just this concept of what we do as leaders. Sometimes we think as a leader, I need to be in charge and I need to, show them who's boss and kind of strut my stuff. And to me, that's the opposite of leadership. And so a true leader doesn't build greatness in other people. A true leader knows that the greatness is already there, and they're really good at extracting it from that person, right? You're good at pulling it out. So a couple quotes that I did come across recently was, and this one blew my mind. I'm like, oh, this is so good. A 7-figure leader builds a team, right? Or builds followers. They can build influence, right? A 7-figure leader. So if you're in an industry or a job where you're like, gosh, I'm at that 7-figure mark, and she's right. I do have influence. I do have followers. I do have a team. But an 8-figure leader builds leaders. That's the difference between a 7-figure leader and an 8-figure leader. Man, that spoke to me so much, and I get it. And I have always aspired to the 8-figure leader, right? So what we have to remember, if we're kind of in that, straddling that cusp between 7-figure and 8-figure, how much time are we spending on truly creating leaders versus just creating more and more and more and more and more and more followers, right? We really want to think about that. So let's dig into what I think the 5 things that you need are in order to create those leaders. So I kind of just said the first one already. Number 1, build belief. I really understood about a decade ago when I set out to build leaders, to build this team of leaders, that if I could build belief in other people, that I've really done my job as a leader. That one of the most important things is to, yes, we hear this a lot, cast vision for our people as a leader, but it's really not just casting vision for where you want to go or where you want the company to go or where you want the team to go, but it's building belief individually in that person that you're calling up into leadership. If you can build belief in others, your job as a leader is done, right? And so how do we do that? It is so much about speaking life over and over and over, and not in a prop you up kind of fake way. It's about really identifying that genius in people and reminding them what you see in them, reminding them of that next level of potential within them. And so I want to paint you this picture too, in case you are working with people and you're like, gosh, I do that. I do that. But do you do it often enough? Because I was a very high level leader, and I can look back on my own journey and see moments where I'm like, gosh, I had achieved X and I wanted to achieve Y. And even then, even when I had achieved X, I so didn't believe that I could get to that next level Y. Like, no one from the outside looking in would have ever thought that I didn't have the confidence, having achieved what I had achieved, to go to that next level. But I can remember sitting there thinking, I don't know if I can do this. And it wasn't a fear-induced, insecurity-induced, fear or problem. It was just me sitting there like, gosh, I really don't know if this next level is achievable. I don't know if I can do this. And so thank goodness I had a relationship with a mentor of mine that I was able to go to them and say, which took some guts because it was just hard to say, listen, I don't know if this is possible for me. I'm not quite sure. And looking back at that, it's so funny because they looked at me like I was crazy and told me like, what are you talking about? Like, it's inevitable. That's where you're headed. That's where you're going. It is inevitable that you're going to achieve that. Again, they were building belief in me. But what I really want to stress is I continue to need belief along the way. I continue today to still need mentors to build belief in me. So that job is never done as a leader. So that's number one. Number two, have tough conversations. Whew, this one's hard as a leader, so incredibly hard. I was a baby leader in a sea of lots of people that had been wildly successful and been in the industry for years. And I got myself into a situation where I really had to go into an extremely tough conversation and just say kind of like, this is where I was coming from. This is not what I was intending. And man, oh man, I just remember feeling like this is what you signed up for. If you want to be a leader of this level, you are going to have some of the hardest conversations you've ever had in your life. And something I continue to tell myself to this day, because I get put in this situation again and again and again, is this quote that I heard years ago. You can tell the level of leader by the number of tough conversations that they've had. You can tell the level of leader by the number of tough conversations that they've had. Most of us want to not really go all the way there in the conversation, or maybe sweep it under the rug and not even have the conversation, or we have the conversation and we don't really meet the issue head on. As leaders, we have to just fully attack, not attack in a negative way, but fully lean into that conversation and call it like it is. Call it like it is. Now, here's the magic I'm going to teach you and what I have found that I'm really good at. I am not good at. I've flexed the muscle enough to just know that I got to like throw it all on the table. Like we got to talk about this, right? This is not going to be easy, but we're going to put it on the table. I'm going to tell you how I feel. I'm going to tell you how, this is not okay, that this can't be tolerated, whatever it is. I'm going to lay down the law firmly. And we're going to dig deep into that, and we're going to have that tough conversation. But then I'm going to move on, meaning that tough conversation, in the same conversation, once we get to the bottom of it and everybody has said what they need to say, I am going to counter that with all of the amazingness I see in that person, with how, casting a vision for where I know their future is going, building that belief again, kind of going back to that first point. So you have almost this seesaw of, this is so hard. Oh my gosh, I'm sweating. I don't want to have this conversation. But you end the conversation in a beautiful place of love, of speaking life, of calling out their greatness, of speaking about that compelling future. And so when you leave the conversation, it is on beautiful terms. That's how you show up as a leader in those tough conversations. All right, number 3. come alongside them. So this is one of my favorite things to actually say to myself, self-talk myself into when I have to go into one of those tough conversations or when I'm actually parenting. Parenting is definitely showing up as a leader. Moira, come alongside them. Come alongside them instead of at them, right? Don't come at them, come alongside them. And so you have to think about this we versus me. I always say this, leadership is we versus me. And this is what I mean by that. Whenever I have been in a leadership position and I could call all the shots and I could make all of the decisions and I could come up with the strategy and implement it to my team, I never do. I never do. And I don't know if it's because I've got a little insecurity under there or if I just know that people are geniuses and I'm not always it. Like, I don't know everything, right? I'm a very humble leader. I really, truly believe that. And so every great idea, every strategy, every wild idea I come up with, I come to my team and I say to them, hey, I've got this crazy idea. I'm really curious what you guys think. Tell me your thoughts. Give me your input. Let's take this idea and change it up depending on what your opinions are. And so it really is a we thing. I have come to my team many a times and said, even my assistants on my team, I'm like, hey, I've got this crazy idea for social media. And sometimes they're like, no, that is not a good idea. I'm like, you're right. You're absolutely right. That was a bad idea. Pivot and we move on. Because that's the culture I create, whether it's a team of somebody I'm leading in my business and my industry, whether I'm leading my children, whether I'm leading a team of assistants. It's we. I am not the smartest person all the time, right? I don't always have the best ideas. And so it's creating the culture of we versus me. All right, number 4, we'll buzz through these 4 and 5s. Number 4, you have to give up control. You have to give up control as a leader. And not only do you have to give up control, you actually have to kind of appoint people into leadership tasks, right? Say I'm doing 10 different things as a leader. Well, I should probably actually be doing 3 things that I'm really good at that only I can do. And I need to outsource the 7. Now, this is where as a leader, you're like, oh, but Sally's not going to be able to do it as good as I can do it. I can tell you that that's my original thought with everything, right? Like, I like control. I like to be able to do things my way. But I know that I will never develop leaders unless I trust them to step into the task, right? And then again, we work together. Maybe Sally isn't doing it the way that I want to. Maybe Sally's doing it better. But maybe Sally also just needs to take on the role scared, right? Insecure, and have me build up her confidence around that and then have me kind of come alongside her and say, hey, you should do it this way, or maybe you could do it this way a little bit differently, or gosh, you're doing such an incredible job at that. You should do more of that and then maybe less of this, right? That's how you develop leaders. Encourage them, praise them, help just kind of pivot them a little bit as needed. But you have to give up control. You have to give them ownership in order for them to believe that they can lead. They're not going to believe that they can lead just through a pep talk. They've got to actually own some of it, right? And do some of it. And then last but not least, and this is really my favorite, I say this again and again, you will never lead anyone unless you can lead yourself. You will never lead anyone unless you can lead yourself. And guys, we all know this is a big spectrum, right? Meaning I lead myself really well. Even in my personal life, right? Like, what about your workouts? Where are you showing up with your nutrition? Where are you showing up in your business? How are you prioritizing the needle movers in your business, the IPAs, the income producing activities? Are you showing up on social media if that's part of your job? Are you consistent in this area? Are you consistent in that area? You have to be the best example. You have to lead yourself. And really at the foundation of this is those personal habits, right? If you are cutting corners in the gym, not doing your personal growth like you should, you're getting sloppy with your nutrition. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy yourself every once in a while and have rest days. We all know that. But where have you cut the corners a little too much? Where have you started to slide a little too much? I was talking to a really high level group of leaders the other day and sharing this with them that when I look back at my sharpest rise in success, man, I was freaking dialed in and on fire with my habits, right? And that's the energy I showed up in. And that is, even without saying anything, the example that I gave to everyone around me. And they rose to that level. They rose to that example that I was setting for them. So ask yourself, are you setting the alarm at a decent time and bam, getting up and getting out of bed? Are you getting your workouts in? Where are you with your nutrition? Where are you with your mindset? Where are you with your spiritual growth? Where are you in your relationships? Right? How do you treat other people? You have to be able to exercise that commitment, that self-discipline, because you cannot expect it from other people unless you expect it from yourself. So self-leadership always comes first, always. And that's it. Those are your 5. And I truly believe that if you do those 5 things, I'll recap them. Build belief in other people, right? Speak life. Number 2, have those tough conversations, but balance them out with number 1. Number 3, come alongside them. Make it a we thing, not a me thing. Number 4, stop controlling everything. You have to give up control. And then number 5, lead yourself. If you do those 5 things, you are going to grow so many leaders. You are going to call people to their highest level, and you will see greatness emerge, not only within yourself, but within those around you. So I hope this helps. I would love to hear back from you. Shoot me a DM on Instagram. If you're watching on YouTube, you can drop a comment below. Share this episode with somebody else this week, and we will see you next week on the High Vibe Life podcast.